Hi everyone, Two-Wheel Rider coming to you from a rather familiar seat for me. So we are on the NC750X. Now, the reason I've gone back onto this bike, and this is the 2024 model with a manual gearbox. Now people have seen my early video. I was using my DCT, and that was a 2015 bike with about 25,000 miles on there. But I've now got this manual gearbox bike, and it's given me pause for thought, because obviously we've been looking at and talking a lot recently in the videos about small capacity adventure bikes and stuff like that, and I wanted to see really where this now fits in and whether the latest version of this fits anywhere in there. And yeah, I think it does, and as we go through the video I'll explain why. But yeah, the manual gearbox in this one really does change the perspective of this bike. Again, there's still some issues with it which I'll cover as we go through, but the actual bike itself, I think it feels like a grown-up NX, and I'll chat more about that as we go on. Quick apology about the bang 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 on the microphone. That was the strap on my rucksack doing that, so sorry about that. I don't think it causes too many problems, but we'll go and have a quick look around the bike, and then we can have a chat, and we'll do some riding and bits and pieces that like we always do. Guys, NC750X. This is the latest version, and as I said in the intro, I wanted to have a look at this because I wanted to see how different this really was to the one that I had, the 2015 model. So paying particular attention to the suspension. Styling wise, I think there's quite a it's a nice improvement. There's some nice upgrades on this, and I think this is actually a really pretty looking bike. But cutting to the chase, what do I think is better on this bike than my one? It's definitely the standard seat. The standard seat is actually okay. I know I've just got off my Interceptor, and I've been riding that virtually non-stop for the last few days, and that's a standard seat, and that's quite hard. So actually sitting on this, where it's a bit wider, is actually a bit kinder on my ass. So that was pretty good. Interestingly, in terms of what the bike has, in terms of features, there's not a lot of difference. So obviously the screen is new, and that's slightly updated compared to my old one. But we got no USB. Again, Honda, what are you playing at? No USB. We still got the modes and the select on here, which is the same as what I had. So there's no. I thought this would be a bit more updated, but it's not heavily updated compared to mine. We still got the frunk, which is still a great thing, really, and that's slightly increased, so you can get a lid in there. I've got my camera, so I won't be able to see, but that's definitely bigger than my original one. But mine did have an output in here. There's not one in there. The battery is actually behind that panel, so that's really good. But the frunk is a really good thing, because obviously we got the petrol tank, which is under the seat, which again gives it that lower centre of gravity, and you certainly feel that this is a really easy bike to wheel around. And it's another reason why I've decided to look at these again, because riding those things like the NX500 and the Himalayan and stuff like that, is this another alternative to those, really? It's not price wise, because I think you're a couple of grand over on these. But what this does give you, which if you've watched my my little talk on what I think about adventure bikes at the moment, and I say that term loosely, is that this will cruise. This has got really long legs in its gearing, and this is the DCT, and I hadn't tried the standard gearbox on one of these, and I actually really like it. I was doing 60, and I was still only doing about, I don't think I was touching 3,000 revs, which is really, really low. So that makes for a really relaxed cruise. And when you look at the styling, I know it's this thing, I know I said about styling, you know, we all want the styling, the adventure styling. This does give you that. And the other key factor was, you know, what does it make you feel like when you get on it? Do you feel like it's a bit of an adventure bike? And it does. In this configuration with the manual gearbox in it, I think this is a really good alternative now. And I'm glad I've come back to revisit it. I just got to get out the road because someone's coming. Right, so we're going to look at the suspension, because that's the key thing for this bike, because my original suspension was shocking on my NC. But I just want to see what it compares like to the NX, and see what the damping and whether I get thrown off the bike. And we're on these humps that I like. So let's try this. Yeah, see, that's interesting. So I'm hitting these at about 30 miles an hour, and the bike's responding really well. The damping is really, really good, and it's not harsh. It's not harsh on the front. So whatever they've done to that front suspension has worked really, really well. It just actually feels just more solid. I know it is a little bit heavier than the NX coming in. I think it's probably about 25 kilos heavier. But you do feel that, but because of the centre of gravity is quite low, it feels very stable. So I don't have any problem with that extra weight on this bike, and I think it settles it down really nicely. But the actual overall feel when you're sitting on the bike does feel like the NX in terms of your actual look. When you sit on the bike, you just feel you're on a slightly beefier version of that bike, which I found rather pleasing, to be honest with you. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what they've done with the suspension on this, I really am. Well, they couldn't certainly leave it as it was, because it was shocking. Pardon the pun. So we'll head back and have a little bit more of a talk around the bike, and just my thoughts on it really, before we do a little bit more riding. Certainly will say that it sounds good. It sounds really good, this bike. I like the standard exhaust that Honda put on their bikes, really cool. I feel like I'm a bit far away, but we'll do our best. If you can see where my camera is balanced over the water, that's a great risk. It's a little bit windy. But I think in terms of how this feels, and you know, we've got that low centre of gravity. I'm flat-footed, easily flat-footed, but it doesn't feel like I'm really low to the ground. And the actual feel of the bike when I sat on it was not that much different from the NX500 in its layout, with where the screen is and stuff. I did mention on the ride that there's not enough wind protection on this bike, not for me anyway. And I do feel a little bit higher up than I was on my NX. On my NC, but then my NC did have the Sealy Grand seat, which I had to fiddle out to get it comfortable. So I think a touring screen would make a big difference on this, but you know, I think in the manual gearbox, this is a bloody good option. I really do. But what's interesting, I've noticed how expensive these are now. Even in second hand, the cost is quite high. I'm just going to let this car go past. Do you think he's not going to knock my thing in the water? Because that'd be really good if he didn't. Hey. That could have been an expensive mistake, couldn't it? But these are really holding their money. No wonder I was given $3,000 for my one when I sold it to a main dealer, because I looked up the the second-hand prices of these the other day, and they're high. The residual values of these is quite high at the moment. So if you can find one that's maybe a year old, 2 years old, with this gearbox, I think they're a worthwhile bike, because the pillion comfort is good. I'd like to know whether it'll bottom out. This does have a different front suspension though, and it's got some valving, so I think you can change the damping on the front as well, because that's much better than mine was. Mine was terrible. So that's better, and it doesn't look like it's going to ground out. Mine used to bottom out, my thing. But actually, this is like a sort of grown-up NX500, to be honest with it, in this format with the manual gearbox. I think it's worth looking at, chaps. Again, I'm glad I got to ride this newer version. It's a shame, again, you don't have the bloody USB, and it doesn't have any connectivity on the dash. You know, that's obviously a Honda trait. You know, why give you all the bits on one bike where you've got to keep upgrading? But yeah, let's do some engine testing. Let's do the 40 to 60 and stuff like that, and I'll show you what it's like on a cruise, and see what it's like to getting nice and windy now. I can see my camera going flying in a minute. What it's like on a dual carriageway, at sort of dual carriageway speeds, and see what that rev counter is doing, because I think that's really important. I really can't emphasise enough this thing about riding small capacity bikes when you're revving them high, how fatiguing that is on you. So we'll do that. Let's go and have a ride. So this first bit is going to be going up a really steep hill. I think I'm in fourth, just to see what this bike pulls like. And you can't get a gauge this hill, but wow, does it accelerate. This engine's got great torque, really good torque. And I think that extra sort of capacity this has over the 500 makes a big difference. And it still sounds really, really good. And I just think that makes a massive difference when you're touring. This did have a bit of a fault on the screen. I had to keep pressing it to get it to come up. I can't imagine that's a really common fault with Honda bikes, but you never know. Somebody might tell me different if these screens have a bit of an electrical glitch. So what I'm doing now, I'm heading out onto the motorway, and I'm going to get it up into top. The traffic was heavy today, but I'll get up into top and just show you what the revs are doing. And spoiler alert, they're not doing a lot. You see, I had to keep pressing the dash to make sure I could see what was going on. But even at these speeds, we were just ticking over, to be honest with you. You know, the engine was doing hardly anything, and you didn't feel like you were labouring it at all. But I do get up to Nationals in a sec, once I manage to get past some of these cars which are coming beside me. But really surprising how well the engine responds, and having the ability to drop a cog when you feel like you needed it makes a really, really big difference. And it does sound good. Again, the wind protection not great on this. You'd need a touring screen, I think, or be a lot shorter than me. I think I blast past this car in a sec. Oh, this lorry in front of me. Yeah. So the acceleration is really, really good. You know, we're in excess for Nationals, just about to safety overtake, and I'm only doing 4,000 revs maximum. I think if below that, I think, to be honest with you. So really, really impressive, that engine. But I just think the manual gearbox makes this bike an option for that sort of touring stroke adventure. With a DCT can be a little bit hard work, I think, otherwise, but that's just my thought on that. I know other people really love the DCT, and I do, but this, I think, changes that. Right, so I hope you like that little it's a short review on the new NC, but it's sort of like a revisit in it. So I wasn't going to go into all the specs. There's nothing wrong with this engine. The engine is perfectly good. It's got more than enough power than you need for touring. without a doubt, and I'd argue that with anybody. And certainly got more power than your your 500s, and that, although the NX500 engine is phenomenal, but it's got more than enough power for that, and it's got that real nice low gearing, or high gearing, low gearing, I can never work which way, I always want to say that, which makes touring relaxing. And it's got a little bit of off-road capability, in as much off-road that we do as people when we buy an adventure bike. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that little update, and I'll see you in the next video, everybody. Take care, ride safe. So final thought then, I think if you were going to do more road biased touring and you wanted a smaller capacity bike, I think this is the way to go, or could be the way to go, and well worth the effort trying it out first. So I will wend my way back. I managed not to drown the bike or the camera, so that's really good. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, ride safe everyone.